Greetings, welcome to Self-Assessment 11, Problem 2. So in this problem we're asked to do a fairly straightforward application problem of rational functions. In particular, we're going to look at the famous model distance equals rate times time. You and your family are driving to Santa Fe, New Mexico on a road trip. From Phoenix, the trip is 526 miles according to Google. Answer the following questions based upon the situation. Round to the nearest tenth as needed. Using the relationship that distance is equal to rate times time, or d equals rt, write a rational function t of r that has the average rate of travel r in miles per hour as its input and the time of travel in hours as its output. The distance will be constant at 526 miles. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of a laundry list here. So we know d is going to be equal to 526. And the things that are going to vary are going to be t and r. So if we take our little formula right here and we put in the 526 in there, and that's equal to r times capital T. And keep in mind that what we're trying to get is t isolated by itself. We want t as a function of r. We see that if we take 526 and divide that by r, we're going to get back capital T of r. In other words, we'll have t as a function of r. We'll have solved it for t. So let me put that up over here in the corner here where we've got it and we can keep it front and center. So t of r is going to be equal to 526 divided by r. All right, great. So now what do they want from us? Well, let's see. I think they want us to find out how long is it going to take us to get to Santa Fe if we obeyed the speed limit the whole way. In other words, if we went just 55 miles an hour on average. So notice that this right here, that is an r, that's an input. So what they're asking us to do is take t and evaluate it at 55. So that's going to be equal to 526 divided by 55. Okay, so let's go ahead and use our calculator to figure that out. So 526 divided by 55, and it's going to take us about 9.6 hours roughly if we only go 55 miles an hour the whole time. Okay, so let's see, yeah, round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that's going to be, come back here, about 5.6 hours. Make sure I wrote that down right. Yeah, because we're going to round off. So it's 9.5 and then round it off and go to 5.6. Okay, if the trip took 12 hours, what would your average rate of travel be? So now notice that this is a time. So what they're giving us now, this is a cap t right here. So that says if you've got 12 is equal to 526 times r, what would your average rate been? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and clear the fractions here, or use the means equals the extremes idea, and that tells me that 12r is equal to 526. What you can think about this if you'd like is that I simply multiplied both sides by r, or I could put a 1 underneath this 12, and use the trick that we have two fractions equal to each other, multiply together those two, multiply together those two. Okay, so we're not quite done though because we haven't solved for r yet, so let's come up over here to do that, and we get r is equal to 526 divided by 12. And so if it took us 12 hours, what was our rate? How fast we're going? Obviously less than 55 miles an hour because we're taking more time to get there. So we're going to take 526 and we'll divide that by the 12 hours. And that meant that we were driving at 43.8 miles per hour if we round off correctly. So we'll incorporate that in there. So that was miles per hour. Notice back over here, the previous solution was in hours, okay? Determine the vertical intercept T of R and interpret its meaning. If the vertical intercept does not exist, explain why in context of the story. Okay. Well, let's think about this for a minute. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of these gobbledygooks here that we've got. Clean this thing up. What does this graph look like? Well, this graph is T of R is equal to 526 divided by R. All right. So if we made a rough sketch of this thing, I'll let you play a bit on your calculator to check it out. This would be R, and this would be capital T right here, okay? And what we know, since we know a little bit about rational functions, is that this thing has got a vertical asymptote. As a matter of fact, it's got a vertical asymptote at R equal to 0. So we know that the t-axis here is playing starring role as a vertical asymptote. Why? Because that would be R equal to 0 is where we get division by 0. Now, notice that the degree of the numerator is of lower degree than the denominator, so that tells me that what? Well, it tells me that my horizontal asymptote is at t equal to 0. So the graph is actually going to look something like this. Knowing what we know about asymptotes, it's going to come up as close as you want it to get to those axes, but it's never going to touch them. So if we try and actually do it, in other words, we actually try and go ahead and find the vertical intercept, remember that the vertical intercept here, that's the y-intercept, which in our case is the t-intercept for what we're working with, which infers to us that r would be equal to 0. Well, let's try plugging that in and find out what happens here. If you try and do t of 0, you get 526 divided by 0, and nope, we're not doing that. That's division by 0. So the correct answer is does not exist. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. In a way, it looks like where is this heading off to? It's heading up to positive infinity. And if your rate was equal to 0, I mean, thinking about just the practicality of here, if r is equal to 0, then that means that time is going to go to infinity. It's going to take you an infinite amount of time to get to Santa Fe. This is not a very good road trip. I don't want to go with you. I'm staying home. All right, let's try this again. What about the horizontal intercept? Okay, so the horizontal intercept, it's kind of the reverse situation now. Now what we've got is we've got that that t is equal to 0, right? So horizontal intercept says that t is equal to 0, which would infer to us that 0 is equal to 526 divided by r, which says that 0 is equal to 526 if I multiply both sides through by r. And again, that doesn't work, okay? So it does not exist. So let's think about it in practicality terms, okay? Notice as r gets bigger, t gets smaller. The time to get from Phoenix to San Jose goes smaller and smaller the faster you go. So as r goes towards the speed of light, the time to get from Phoenix to Santa Fe starts approaching 0. It's like, again, that doesn't make much sense. It can instantaneously move from Santa Fe to Phoenix or Phoenix to Santa Fe. Okay, well, hopefully that helps out. Again, if that did not make sense, if I wasn't very clear there, don't be shy about posting questions in the Q&A forum or send me a message and I'll do what I can to help you.